Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Living a Graceful Life. I'm Tracy Gelb, and I'm so excited to have my friend Karen Pritchard on with me today. Did I pronounce your last name correctly? I wanted to ask you earlier.
Yes, yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
Yes. And I want to just say a few things about her. I've gotten to know her a little bit over the last year and a half, and she is the absolute real deal. And I really mean that. She is so loving and kind. And I've recently discovered the Baha'i faith in the last year and a half and was welcomed into her home many times. And such a beautiful person inside and out. So, with that being, I thank you. I'm grateful. I feel very grateful to have you here on the last day of your Baha'i fast.
That's
So,
yes.
tell me a little bit about you, please.
Okay, I have lived in South Florida virtually my whole life. We moved here when I was 3, so I am a South Floridian for sure. Not born and raised, but raised for sure here. And married to a great guy from Buffalo, New York. Um, we have been here. We just celebrated our 51st wedding anniversary. We have 4 kids, 3 daughters and a son, all of who are happily married with grandchildren. So we have 9 grandchildren, which is so and I have to say I was only child raised by a single mom. So I've gone from this kind of quiet, this quiet existence, if you will, to this. Somebody told me I created the family I never had,
Wow.
which is really probably pretty true. So I'm very happy to be a part of this and so happy to know you and your mom. And so, I mean, just interesting how circumstances and God and all those forces bring people together, and there's just a fluency. There's a fluency. You just all of a sudden recognize people and start to feel that connection. It's just easy. And I'm grateful that I have that with you.
Thank you. It's energy. I feel like it's energy. My mom and I were talking about that today. You have such great energy and I feel people's energy very strongly. And I wanted, and I felt that the minute I walked in your home the first time. So I want to know how and why the Baha'i is the faith, this beautiful faith. So I think you're a lot more equipped to tell us about it. So how
Sure.
did you end up and why did you become Baha'i?
Oh, interest. Good questions. I grew up in an Episcopalian, sort of quasi Episcopalian experience. My mom sent me to church. And and after a while, I started asking questions because I was struggling with what do we believe in? And I asked too many questions. So at one point, I was told that I must want my faith handed to me on a silver platter. And that's when I went home and I said to my mom, I don't want to go anymore, anymore to do with this. There's a lot of other detail, but suffice it to say that my own life and my mother's was impacted by the death of my brother when I was a year and a half old. He was 2.5 years old. And the experience was one that shattered our lives in every way possible. And those of you who have lost close family members understand how that works. But I'm a little tiny person. And as a result of this passing, an accidental drowning, my mother had an emotional breakdown. I was sent to live with an aunt for a year and a half. My parents got a divorce. And when we got back together again, mother and I moved from what was upstate New York to Florida and came down here and been here ever since. So all of this, what matters about all this is that my brother's soul spirit was something that was very important to me and very much a part of my existence almost all the time. I mean, I knew, I felt his presence, and when I would ask about it at church, there were no answers. There were things like, purgatory and, um, and this kind of, there was no definition I could get. And it was very difficult for me. And I kept asking. And as I said, I didn't get good answers. So my mother ran into a woman who was a Baha'i, and she was being criticized by all these other women because she was some part of some weird religious blah, blah, blah. And my mother went up to her and said, you know, who are you and what do you believe in? And the woman said, I'm a Baha'i. And she told her a little bit about it. And mother came home and said, Karen, you've got to meet this woman. You've got to go to a Baha'i meeting. And I said, no, I'm done. I'm 17 at the time. And I'm like, these little, you know, moving away from home and a little rebellion going on too, but still in all, it was like, no. So after about 3 weeks of her nagging me about it, I told her I would go to make her happy, but not because I wanted to go. You know, I was 17. And so I went to this Baha'i meeting in Pompano. And I remember, you know what you said when you walked into my house and you felt a different spirit there?
Mm.
Yeah, I felt that. It was really strong. It felt like something very different was going on, that there were open minds, that I was encouraged to ask questions, that I was the first thing I was told that was that science and religion have to agree. And we had just sent a guy up in one of those little, you know, for an hour. Remember that? You don't remember that because I'm so
I
much
don't
older than
remember.
you.
Yeah, I've
But
heard about it.
but there was that first time this guy went up for an hour. And we, oh my God, you know, and he didn't see bodies floating around in space like all the churches had been telling us about it. I remember thinking this, how does all of this work? I asked a lot of questions
Yeah.
in my head, you know. I mean, I just was so amazed that I could find this place where I was welcome and that things were logical and well understood, and it was open to everyone. I went home. I went back to. I left the meeting, went to another party that my friends were having that night, and I told them all about it. And the next week, 9 of us went to a Baha'i meeting, and then it just grew from there. There was a whole crowd of us. Um, the end of it was I finally asked the question about my brother's soul. It took me 3 or 4 weeks to get the, you know, that was to me the piece that mattered the most. And if the answer was, it met my heart and if it made sense to me also spiritually and logically,
Yeah.
that was it. So I asked, and I was told that a child in the Baha'i teachings, that a child that passes before he can have or she can have independent knowledge of God, that child is raised by God himself. That soul is nurtured by our creator. And and the connections between this world and the other worlds is so strong and so powerful. The teaching just blew me away. So I became a Baha'i immediately. I signed up, you know, registered, if you will, no big deal. Called my mother. She got freaked out, thought I joined a cult. So she set out to look into what I had done. And within 6 months, she had become a Baha'i. My grandmother, who was probably like the age that I'm at now, she looked at the two of us and she said, you can't take Jesus Christ away from me. And we said, it's okay, Nana. We love you. It'll be fine. Don't worry. And we just did our thing and invited her, included her as much as we could. And at one point she turned to, because mom and I had had a lot of friction in our lives. And at one point she said, and you guys are different now. There's something in your relationship that's very different. If this something is the Baha'i teachings, then it's worth my looking into. So at the age of like 75, she became a Baha'i.
Wow.
We went back 3 generations, and then we started working on the men.
No offense to anybody, but they do take a little longer
They
sometimes.
do. They need more time to cook. But
Uh,
sorry,
oh,
Mark. I
that's
know
such
you're
a good story. I knew a little bit about it. We'd spoken about the brother
yeah.
part because you know about my sister, and that was a big question for me. And obviously when you're suffering so much and grieving, that's a big question. But and I love the story, and especially Granny. Granny. There's so many things about Baha'i that I've learned, and one of the things that I also wanted to tell my mom. I've not been so much involved with organized religion or actually at all, just because it hasn't really resonated with me. But I love God. I believe in God. I'm very spiritual. I pray. I really, really am. And I am Jewish and I feel more Jewish. and I met a dear, dear friend. Her name is Vina in the Baha'i, and I would talk to her. We would meet up and talk, and she would say, I would tell her, I just want you to know I'm not going to really become Baha'i. And she said, you don't have to become Baha'i. You're going to learn more about whatever it is that you're looking for. If you want to learn more about being Jewish, and I did, and I am. And that's what I love so much. And this was a quote today. I think I see a lot of quotes, and I think of the Baha'i, and I think of you, and it says, and I saw two today, so I'll do this first one. It says, when someone asks me what my religion is, my response is the one that doesn't have the vision. And that's what makes me love the Baha'i situation so much. I feel very included,
Mhm.
even though you guys know that it's not, I'm not going to be Baha'i per se, but I consider myself a friend of the Baha'i. And when we do our Thursday devotionals and meetings, there's many friends of the Baha'i there, and it's something I've brought people there. I feel comfortable. Um, just like I talk about on my show, I don't recommend any of my holistic products that I don't take. I would never bring somebody there if I didn't feel 100. My mother, I brought my mother there. So, and she loves it. She does her sound bowls and meditation and healing. It's about healing and being conscious. That's how I feel when I'm with you. You
Wonderful.
raise my level of consciousness.
Oh, you know, the Baha'i teachings are so they're, I mean, I hate to use the word revolutionary, but they are in terms of historical, historically what we've learned. But we believe that all religions are we believe in one God, and we believe that all religions are one, because if there's only one God, there can only be, in our view, one religion that celebrates and worships and glorifies God. From time to time, messengers come, are sent to mankind, and they give us these teachings according to our ability, our maturity, and our collective understanding to receive them, because God in his mercy gives us, you give milk to a baby and not, you know, bread, right? So over
Yes.
time. And so we believe that the teachings of Abraham and of Moses and of Christ and Buddha and Krishna and Muhammad and now Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith, are really all from the same source. They're one. So it's a progressive understanding. And that was
Beautiful.
the part that made so much sense to me when I heard that. I went, okay, I don't, like you said, there isn't division. There's only one religion. If
Yes.
you look
And
at it
that's
that way, you almost have to take off those lenses you've been looking through for a long time. And I always encourage people, take off those lenses, put them aside, and see, could it be that all along it's not the slice of the pie, it's the whole pie. We can see it, we can see all of it. And we can say, we may identify as Jewish or Christian or Islam or whatever, but what if all of these messengers of God come in a certain order and bring us the teachings that we need for the time in which we live? So the Baha'i teachings are, because the Baha'i faith, it came into being, if you will, in the mid 1800s. It's
right.
much more modern, it's much more up to date, and it is inclusive of the entire world. It's this idea about dividing that you mentioned
Yes.
and uniting. I mean, we believe that every one of these religions and these messengers of God, if you will, have come to bring a higher level of unity each with each revelation. So Jesus could have spoken about the unity of mankind, but we thought the world was flat. We didn't know what was going on the other side of the planet, right? Now that we know the planet and we understand that it's this whole sphere with life all over it, we can talk about the unity of mankind.
And I think one of the things that I love so much, and the people that I've met and friends of mine have gone to different countries and certain, you call it serve, but it is of service, going and helping other people, going to orphanages, doing good deeds in the world, being really having a purpose. You have a home. And I'm going to be, I when I first saw the house from the outside, I was your home. No, I want, I was kind of like, I'm very minimalist, extremely. basically turning into a Buddhist as we speak. But it was a lot for me. It was because I thought, oh, I'm looking for something really kind of, yes, simple. And but I felt when I met you and I met some of the others, it was just, and it was explained to me, this is a home so a lot of people can come, and I've seen it on the nights we do the meditation, and that we can all gather together. And then I found out how many children and grandchildren come and do this. So, and then getting to know you and how humble you are, and you are, and how, like we made a joke, you and I, when we first saw each other before the show started, because we both had lipstick on, because we normally don't. But that's who you are. You just got your little shirt on, and I love you. You're so beautiful, and you're so humble and kind. And I found out more of the things about the Baha'i that I loved. I love that there's no weapons, that violence is not allowed or permitted. And that's a big thing for me. Very, very big thing. And then there were just different things that I learned more about. And I would talk to somebody and they would say, oh, I'm going to the orphanage tomorrow. And I would say, well, of course you are. But, or I'm going to go, there's a day that we just go to different places where there's children and bring them presents
Yeah,
and all of the good in the world. You do all good. That's how I feel about it.
thank you.
You're welcome.
The work that Baha'is do, the service that Baha'is provide is at the community level, because everything is, starts at the base of community, or even the neighborhood, if you will. And so we offer children's classes, we offer programs for uh, preteens and early teens, and we also have programs for we have devotional gatherings. So you've been to many of them, certainly. And we also offer a series of classes. The first one is called Reflections on the Life of the Spirit, where we focus on the idea that our identity should be more spiritual than it is material. And of course, we live in a material existence right now, but if we think of our souls, I've said this so many times, some of you have heard it before, but if we think of ourselves as souls that happen to have a body instead of bodies that happen to have a soul, then our priority shifts. It just changes our whole outlook, if you will.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to think of it that way to me. And I mean, because I was as awful as it was that I had the struggles that I had as a little kid, nevertheless, it prepared me to have a better understanding of concepts of life after death, which to me are huge. I mean, I just can't, especially since I'm 73 and thinking I'm on, time is it's not on my
No,
side.
it's not. No,
Well, I
it's
mean, it's just,
no.
I mean, there's a lot of years left, but the fact is that it's important that I have my priorities, straight. I'm not worried about educating my daughters anymore, all of those things. They've got their own daughters to deal with. So there's that. But I think some of the teachings of the faith that you also find appealing, because you're learning about this as you take reflections on the life of the spirit yourself, which
Right.
love you join us on that. But part of it is understanding, the value of prayer, the relationship that we have to our creator, the fact that we have a life after this life, that we go on to live, eternally, and we develop our spiritual qualities so that we can become more attuned with our creator. For me, when I was first a Baha'i, and I think still after all these years, the one teaching that really stood out on for me was independent investigation of truth. There's
Yes.
such a nobility to that. Each of us
Yes.
has to look for ourselves. We can't just be, I often say, we can't just be a Democratic hairdresser because our mother was, or we can't be, an Appalachian farmer who raises pigs because dad was. We have to find our own path and our own way. And that used to be the way things were. We inherited what, certain cultural understandings, or even,
Course, if your parents were a specific religion, or if they were,
yeah.
some sort of thing that they did as a family generational thing. But now, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more that you're speaking my language.
Yeah. So we have to give everybody an opportunity to fulfill their own mission, if you will. And sometimes that means, well, it often means we have to look at truth for ourselves. We have to find it for ourselves. So when that priest told me, you want your faith handed to you on a silver platter, he actually did me quite a favor, because I realized I couldn't go to him and ask him questions that would make me happy. I needed to go out there and figure it out for myself. And I did. That was the part, that finding truth, and looking for truth, and knowing and being able to identify with it and align our lives with it.
Yeah. I
Otherwise,
think
we're like schizophrenic, or whatever the word is. We're at odds with ourselves. This is wrong, and it's not healthy.
no, and it's exactly comes to my other quote that one
Okay.
of the things that I love, that I'm learning so much about, and I've always been extremely open-minded, not as much as now. But and I read these both today, which I thought was kind of interesting because I think there are no coincidences. It says
I,
open-minded people do not impose their beliefs on others. They just accept all of life's perspectives and realities, doing their own thing in peace with no judgment. And I think that when you think about, no, really, like for me, that's perfect because I want to let everybody do whatever it is that they need to do to find their peace and to find their God and their it's been, we were speaking, Karen and I were speaking before, about how life can have many challenges and many things happen. And we have two choices we do in this life. We can grow and heal, or we can go down a very dark road and a path which I've been on myself that is a self-destructive nightmare. So I'm going to choose at this stage in my life to open my mind to every possibility, everyone I meet. I want to hear what they have to say. I want to learn. And that's why, even if, people have made like weird comments to me, like, oh, that sounds a little cultish. Not to me, I mean, it hasn't been to me. And I really mean that. It's been a wonderful, I have met some unbelievable people. I mean that, including you, my dear.
and you're just getting started. There's a whole lot more research that's been coming in between between the few friends that you've been associating with. We've got a lot more people to bring you to see. It's very interesting, the dynamic of this. I think too, one of the things that I take a lot of delight in are the Baha'i teachings on the elimination of prejudice of all kinds. So racial, social,
Yes.
religious, age, we have to get rid of all these things they're like they constrict us. They prevent us from they divide us. Like you said before, that quote that you read before about division. You
Yeah.
want the religion that doesn't divide. This is a religion that stands for unity. If there was one word that you could use to describe the Baha'i faith with, if you only had one word, it would be unity.
And I see it with how inclusive everybody is. You all have dinners like for a New Year's or something, and you just want everyone, bring a friend, I mean, I have a lady I've become friendly with that I said, oh, who's that lady we were having the gathering at your house, and she said, oh, I met her at Starbucks. And I asked her if she wanted to come tonight.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
just said, oh, this is so, and the woman was in her 80s. So she went and picked her up. She went and picked her up. It was Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks.
Yeah.
And I just thought, these are the kind of people that that resonate with my soul. These are the people that, uh, you know, I believe that all of us, I really have always believed that, and that we have good in us, and somewhere along the way, crazy things happen, and we get voices that we hear, and the TV shows and the news, and if we could just get back to the goodness and the faith and the peace and the no division, and that's where I see where you all are coming from with this.
Mhm. Absolutely. And what we promote is the concept of this idea of progressive revelation. There's this logical order of revelation that comes to mankind so that over time we can add more and more knowledge. When you go to first grade, you learn a certain set of skills and abilities. And when you go to second and third and fourth grade, you build on that. You don't forget what your first grade teacher taught you. It's a cumulative, progressive, if you will, amount of knowledge that is gained. So the same could be said of if if you suspend all those those things that we've been, put those glasses off, if you will, and sort of see things fresh, if you will. Um, the founder of the Baha'i faith is Baha'u'llah, which means the glory of God. And he says that he invites us to set aside all of our acquired knowledge and look with fresh eyes. on these teachings. Imagine if we could do that, if we could sort of say, all right, I got all this stuff behind me, but I'm looking with fresh eyes at something. Could it be that, um, could it be that this is a progression of religion, an understanding of seeing the whole of it? What could it be that this has the potential to unite all of mankind? And if we see it that way, if we ask questions based on that, if we investigate based on that concept, then I think we'll find that the answers are there. I'm going to read a quote to you
Yes,
because
please.
I think
Yes,
this will be interesting.
absolutely.
It is Baha'u'llah has drawn the circle of unity. He's made a design for the uniting of all the peoples and for gathering all of them under the shelter of the tent of universal unity. This is the work of the divine bounty, and we must all strive with heart and soul until we have the reality of unity in our midst. And as we work, so will strength be given unto us.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So this is what God wants for his creatures, for his creation, if you will. Then as we work toward in unity, and that's why we really strive to establish that and to maintain it. I will also say this, unity being the hallmark, the highest aim, if you will, it isn't easy to achieve. I mean, it's tough, and especially in a world that's divided, that's infected with misinformation and, you know, bad science and crazy, we used to think journalism was a noble field, and now we're starting to wonder. You gotta
Yes.
look at it. You have social media, things fly around the world in 2 seconds, and all of a sudden it's being seen as reality and as truth. So the idea being that this is not an easy thing to achieve, but it's what, if you will, it's what God wants for this age. So we work very hard to
Oh,
offer
and
this.
you really do. I can't even believe we only have a couple minutes left. I feel like we just started talking and I could talk to you for another hour and a half. Um, but I just want to ask you, how can, if people want to come to your beautiful Thursday evenings, to the meditation or the devotionals, how can they find you?
Okay, I live in Weston, and in the chat, if you guys go to the chat, I listed, I gave you my phone number and my email address. And you can certainly call me or text me or email, whatever you want to, whatever you like. I'm happy to answer questions. We feel like the books of God are open, and I always try to say, there are no questions you can't ask. There are no things you can't participate in, except the Baha'is will not take money from people who are not Baha'is. So no one will ever pass a collection plate around. Cannot happen. At least you know that you don't have that trap coming. But there's two good websites that I recommend. One is, they're both listed in the chat. And the first one, BahaiTeachings.org, is, if you go, you'll see an index of subject matter. So you can go in and look at, what is the Baha'i faith's relationship to Judaism? What's its relationship to this, to that, to the other, and find very short, simple, I mean, these are not elaborate scholarly discourses, but there's still some wonderful articles that have been written by accomplished Baha'is who've, include something about what the Baha'i teachings are in each of these subjects. I really recommend it. It's a great way to find
Will you
more.
please spell Baha'i for me so that they
B,
can?
okay, Bahai.
Okay.
Yeah,
Baha'i.
Bahai.
And we have 1 minute. So I just want to thank you so much. I want to thank you. This has been even better than I could have imagined. I've been looking forward to this all week. And I'm just wishing you a graceful end of your fast, which I know it will be. There's a big celebration
Yes, tomorrow
occurring,
is
which
the
is
new
going to
year.
be the new year. So I wish you a happy and
Thank you.
healthy and beautiful and peaceful and joyful new year. And I think you do God's work, and I think that it's been really a pleasure having you here and meeting you and knowing you and getting to spend more time with you. My mom and I are forever grateful, and I hope people do end up looking it up and coming to some of the wonderful events. And with that, I wish you a good and peaceful evening.